Yunsu made him look like a good guy, but she couldn't believe that he cheated on his wife. He didn't just cheat once, but rather the entire Fairyson knew that the second prince liked women. Kite wondered why she made him like that. Yunsu got angry that she never wrote anything about him. She never wanted the second prince to cheat on his woman. Yunsu gave him good flirting skills so he could be good with his wife, and they could have great chemistry with each other. Kite understood how things turned out wrong. Yunsu was worried that if they could get inside or not. They can't, but still, they need to go inside. Parrot suggested a way to get inside. Parrot pointed out that the Earnest Festival would be held in a month. Kite was not much interested in that festival, as always. Yunsu was familiar with the festival as well. She knew that it was one of the festivals held in Fairyson. It is held in different places every year, from north to east, south, and so on. But luckily this year, it was going to be held in the east, right in the prince's castle. And there is an essential role that is required to get entry into the festival. It was the role of the Flower Knight. Kite got pissed because he knew he had to perform that role. Only a person from the royal family can participate in that role. Yunsu had no clue regarding the Flower Knight. She knew about the Earnest Festival in the first prince's story, but she did not remember anything about the Flower Knight. Only if Kite takes part in the Flower Knight can he officially get into the castle without any suspicion. But Kite wasn't ready for that. Every year during Earnest, Mittelloren sends their delegation, and a princess attends as a part of the delegation. A knight is assigned to escort the princess as a show of appreciation. That is the Flower Knight. The Flower Knight is just an ordinary guard but has to always be with the princess. He should guard her while traveling and act as her partner at the ball. He should also join her during tea parties. A Flower Knight isn't just about escorting her but learning about her to make things better between them. Kite refused and said he would just send an apology letter to him. But Parrot knew that if Kite sent it, the second prince would come back with a large army of his with swords in their hands. Parrot opened another map. They had no clue what it was, but it was the blueprint of the second prince's castle. Parrot drew it. Yunsu was shocked that he drew the entire blueprint all by himself. It was because the northern side was responsible for sending the required material for the second prince's castle. He saw a few things that were unnecessarily made there, so he memorized the entire blueprint out of curiosity. The blueprint was so big, and Yunsu couldn't believe he memorized it all. He thanked her because she was the one who made him so intelligent. She saw the maps, and they were complicated. It felt like a maze to her. Without any proper way to get inside and outside, no one could get out of that. Parrot pointed out that the blueprint was like a maze. Even the royal dungeons were less complicated than this. The maze was just one defense in order to protect the real cave entrance. There could be many other entrances as well. Before they start doing anything, they have to start it before anyone notices it 2 weeks prior. And that's the reason Kite has to be the Flower Knight. Parrot and Yunsu both came out of Kite's study room. Yunsu was deep in thought, and Parrot asked her what was going on in her mind. She was worried about something. Parrot asked her what bothers her. She was worried about whether she'd be able to go back home or not, or if they'd be safe in the palace or not. Things like that bother her. Back in the jungle, when monsters came there, she was not able to do anything. So to tackle that, she made something. She made a book and a pen. Parrot looked at her with complete silence on his face and no expression. She's too weak on her own, so she made that as her defense. She was carrying it with her all the time so she could use it in an emergency. Parrot didn't say a word out of his mouth. He turned around and started walking and said Kite is his master. He would do anything to keep him out of danger. He was making sure to get everything in the enemy territory and accused Yunsu that she could run away after getting the chance. Yunsu got confused. She yelled at him, saying why would she run away? She's an essential ally to the third prince. Parrot suspected her. He reminded her of the first thing she wrote on the paper. She wrote to run as fast as she can so nobody could catch her. Is that a power that an ally would really use? Yunsu didn't say much. Kite didn't think about it much, but Parrot did. Parrot said that she has more affection towards the hero like a second place but less affection towards him and Kite because they were only a stepping stone for the second prince to reach the happy ending. Yunsu was sad about the words Parrot said to her. Suddenly, he apologized to her for being too rude and harsh. He left because he had to order the servants to prepare for the meal. Yunsu didn't say much but rather her first name. She told her first name Vassar. As Parrot was calling her a witch, she told him her name. He was stunned and then addressed her with her name as Madame Vassar. Parrot walked away. Kite was already pissed by the idea of being a Flower Knight. Parrot had already received a letter about the delegation from Mittelloren with the princess and her subjects, which had departed for Fairyson. This statement made Kite even more pissed, and he looked angrily at Parrot. It would take nearly 2 weeks for the delegation to reach the North Castle. even though Kite was still not ready to be a flower knight, and he stopped Parrot from deciding anything for him. But Parrot knew there was no other way. Meanwhile, Yunsu was worried about their argument. Yunsu interrupted their conversation and supported Parrot, stating that there was no choice and they couldn't make the delegation go back, as that would literally start a war. Kite left everything to Parrot since he was the one who started it. Parrot immediately agreed and started preparations for their tour to the castle. Kite asked about the emergency plans. Parrot had already stationed soldiers. Yunsu had no clue about the soldiers. The three of them came to the top of the castle. Yunsu understood why Kite asked for soldiers and preparations. They were looking down at monsters. All of a sudden, Yunsu punched Kite. She was angry at him for not telling her that those monsters could come to the castle as well. Parrot wondered how they came because those monsters usually didn't come around the castle at that time of year. There were so many in numbers around the castle. Meanwhile, Yunsu had no clue why these things were happening even when she hadn't written about them. She looked and saw the gardener, chef, and stable masters standing with weapons. They were the soldiers of the castle. They heard a noise. A maid was running in fear to Kite. She told Kite that the monsters had entered from the south gate. Kite immediately ordered Parrot to take everyone inside the castle and guard the main gate. Kite ran to secure the south gate. Yunsu asked what she should do. Kite didn't want her to do anything rather than stay inside the castle and not cause any trouble. She got angry at the way he spoke to her. Yunsu wondered why he was going alone. He might not be able to fight all those monsters alone. Parrot didn't want to disobey Kite's order and told her to follow as well. Kite wouldn't allow anyone to go outside the castle. There were so many monsters, he might not be able to fight them all, and he shouldn't have gone there alone. Parrot shouted, saying she had to follow orders, and if she wished to be Kite's ally, she needed to follow his orders. Following orders made her mad as she was the author, but she was more worried about Kite at that point. She didn't just want to stand back doing nothing. Holding the book, she took Parrot's sword and ran away. She jumped off from the roof while Parrot tried to stop her from disobeying Kite's order. She jumped and landed safely. She tried to write something in the book. She doubted whether what she had written would work or not, but at that point, she was making a wish. She finished writing and started looking for Kite, calling his name loudly. Yunsu heard something from behind. She looked back and saw many monsters staring at her. She got all scared and sweaty. Holding her sword and shivering in fear, she still called for Kite. Monsters attacked her, but with a single slash, she was able to stop them. Yunsu was able to defeat those monsters all by herself. She couldn't believe she did it. She understood that her wish worked. The monsters were scared of her as she walked towards them, causing them to retreat. She had written herself as an overpowered main character in the book. She was more powerful than anyone. Yunsu kept slicing through those monsters on her own. Once she finished with the monsters, she started looking for Kite again. At the south gate, Kite was protecting his men. The men were trembling in fear, but Kite knew those monsters could sense their fears. Monsters were approaching them slowly, and Kite had no clue what to do. Suddenly, a slash landed on the monster. It was Yunsu, who was able to defeat the monster. She had found Kite. The flesh of those monsters was so gross to her. Kite was shocked. Yunsu greeted Kite when he was sitting on the ground, but Kite got angry at her for being outside the castle. Yunsu felt gross and thought she wouldn't get used to it. It was like chopping chicken skin directly. Kite asked her directly what she was doing outside the castle. Obviously, she was there to help Kite. She wanted to finish things there as early as possible before they talked. She was able to defeat all the monsters, and they were standing there on the top of the castle. Kite wondered why she didn't follow his orders. He was pissed that he had already ordered her to stay inside the castle, yet she disobeyed him and stole Parrot's sword. Yunsu totally ignored his question and rather asked for a sword from him. Kite was getting more pissed. Yunsu suddenly sat down and asked Kite to sit beside her instead of looming over her. Kite got more pissed off. He sat beside her, but he was angry. She felt bad. It was okay with her if he wanted to order people and maintain his dignity as a prince. But why was he trying to do everything on his own? Kite had no clue what she was talking about. She mentioned the earlier incident when he ordered everyone to stay inside when the monsters came. But one person cannot handle everything at once. Kite had no answer. The sun rose as they both sat there. Kite had thought he was alone, but if he wasn't alone, who was with him? Yunsu, in a sleepy voice, said there was Parrot and Doris. Kite noticed that she was sleepy. He realized he had her on his side as well. For the first time, someone had said this to Kite, and he was stunned. Kite held Yunsu from one side to keep her from falling. He sat there in complete silence as Yunsu slept. The only reason he did all this was to protect the people who were willing to live there with him and run the castle. When he saw those faces smiling at him, he got the idea that his life wasn't that bad after all. Yunsu was sleeping, and he asked her to wake up. It was his room, and he wanted to sleep too. Yoonsu was in deep sleep and wanted to sleep 5 more minutes. After that, she would go to work. She wondered where she wanted to go for work. She woke up and understood it wasn't her world. She woke up suddenly and sat on the bed. Kite was sitting beside her on a chair. She apologized for falling asleep while talking. It was Kite's room. She felt so comfy sleeping there, but a sudden pain in her hands appeared. Kite knew it would happen as she swung the sword too much yesterday. He said she should be thankful that she didn't harm herself. He was talking harshly to her, which she didn't like, but rather wanted a thank you from him. Kite opened his coat, showing his body. Yoonsu got shocked and yelled out of fear. He wondered what happened. She didn't understand why he was taking his clothes off. He took them off because he wanted to rest as well. Yoonsu wanted him to wait until she could leave so he could undress himself. He chuckled and excused his manners, but earlier when he was carrying her, she didn't flinch a bit. Yoonsu was pissed and shy too. She didn't ask him to bring her into his room. For a prince, it was extremely suspicious. From Kite's side, he was just like every other human. He didn't have the energy to carry her all the way to her room as she was heavy, and he wanted to rest as well. He asked if she had gotten the idea that she should leave now. She got off the bed. Before she left, he stopped her. He checked the bodies she was able to slice. Their bones were sliced like butter. Yoonsu didn't understand what he was trying to say. He didn't understand how she did it, as she didn't have the skills, and only a skilled person could do it. She thought and told him to see for himself if he was that curious. They stood on the ground, holding swords. Doris was worried about Yoonsu, as Kite was the strongest swordsman in the entire Fairyson, and even the strongest lady knight, Doran, had lost battles against Kite. She shouldn't do it. Yoonsu was confident about it. Before the fight, Kite asked her one more time if she wanted to give up. She didn't want to back down. Kite had enough of her. Since the day she came there and all those things happened with her, she should be able to escape from the enemy if she got caught, and also needs to protect herself from any danger. She knew her powers now and didn't want to be protected by her own created characters. So she wrote on the parchment that she wanted to be the most skilled swordsman who could defeat anyone. Kite thought her cheap spells wouldn't work on him as he was a master in sword fighting. She looked at him and took a strike. Kite tried to protect himself. He was surprised that she was powerful. She wanted him to know how powerful she was. She directly attacked him, making him move backward. Parrot got worried about Kite. Kite saw her sword. She was almost able to defeat him. Yoonsu understood that he was holding back, so she wanted him to attack with everything he had. She wanted to check how much power she held. With a flinch on his face, he raised his sword and got ready for battle. Yoonsu attacked him again, but this time Kite was able to dodge it and defend her attack as soon as she tried to strike. She was able to land some tremendous strikes on him, but Kite was able to defend her attacks without hesitation. He understood that Yoonsu had gotten faster. Her arms were so sharp in their attacks that even Doran would be no match for her at this moment. Kite let down his guard, giving her a chance to strike, and she made him bleed on his cheek. Kite found it interesting and smiled. He understood that Yoonsu had gotten strong. He granted her wish not to hold back and warned her as well. This is exactly what Yoonsu wanted from him. She took her place along with Kite to take his position. Kite raised his sword, and Yoonsu sensed that Kite felt different at that moment. He seemed like a different person. Kite attacked her while she was thinking, but somehow she managed to stop his attack. Kite was impressed that she was able to guard his attack. He knew that she didn't accidentally cut down those monsters. He had wanted to have a battle against someone really strong for a long time. Yoonsu somehow managed herself, but she regretted not learning this way before. He didn't understand her regret. She felt good swinging the sword. Again, she ran towards him with all she had and tried to stab him. But Kite simply sidestepped. Yoonsu thought she had gotten him, but she hadn't. He changed his position and bumped her with his leg, causing her to fall to the ground. Doris got worried about Yoonsu at that moment as she fell down. She called Kite a cheater for using his legs. But in Kite's perspective, what should he do when he's about to die? He has to trip his enemy. She was enraged and took her sword in the air, attacking him again. Kite stopped her attack and took out his dagger from his pocket, pointing it at her neck, saying it was enough for everyone. Yoonsu was shocked and terrified that he had another weapon too. She thought it was cheating to have 2 weapons against a beginner. Kite let her know that it's good to have knowledge about the enemy's weapons in advance. It's not cheating, it's a strategy. And she was not a newbie, she fought with him longer. Yoonsu got pissed and threatened to wipe the floor with his precious black cape. But Kite had no issues with it as well. That made Yoonsu more pissed, and she attacked Kite again as she didn't want to back down. She ran towards him, pointing her sword at him. He dodged it, and they kept on fighting. Again, she got bumped by Kite and fell down. Kite laughed at her, which made her more pissed. The gardener, chef, and Doris got bored of watching them, so they left. Meanwhile, Yunsu and Kite kept fighting. Neither Yunsu nor Kite were ready to give up. Perat was worried about them, screaming so they could hear him. He was telling them to stop fighting. They had been fighting for hours and hadn't slept properly. If they kept on fighting, they might faint. Even though it was good that Yunsu learned sword fighting, Master Kite would not back down from a match like this. Perat was worried. He had to take every step carefully before making any decisions. She stole his sword and ran off. He was a bit confused if it was good to have a match like this at this time. He was working hard for the prince, and now he had to clean up after Yunsu as well. He was working hard and had had enough. He thought he might resign from the post if this kept going on. Perat, in an angry mood, went to the dining table and told them he'd be there if they needed him or not. They both didn't hear him and kept fighting. Perat was always worried about Kite taking responsibility for others and protecting them. Having one more fighter around would be good. Kite, all covered in sweat, told her muscles would be sore the next day and she wouldn't be able to move. Yunsu knew the same went for him as well and advised him to have a vase near his bed as he wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom. They both were fighting against each other. Yunsu got mad as nothing was making any sense. She wrote herself as the strongest swordsman so she wouldn't lose against anyone. But Kite had tremendous skills, and he couldn't be defeated easily. Yunsu didn't like his self-proclaimed thoughts. Yunsu didn't know about his experience, so he put down his sword and gave her a demonstration. He threw his sword, grabbed her hand, and pushed her against a tree, both arms in his control. She tried to get free, but nothing worked. He took out his knife and put it on her neck. He wanted to know how she would escape if someone threatened her like this without having a sword. She had no idea what to say. She was struggling a lot to get free. But as Kite told her, without a sword, she was nothing but a normal woman. She had disadvantages in close combat no matter how much she tried. Kite knew that she would not win a match if she got caught, so rather she needed to write in the book that she had to get stronger. Yunsu listened to him closely. Kite smiled, seeing that she was able to understand him. She asked him why he was laughing all of a sudden. He was trying to understand her after the monster attack. He didn't understand why all of a sudden she wanted to learn sword fighting. What had caused her to do it? It was because they first ran into the bandits and then the monsters came loose. Kite thought she didn't consider him reliable enough to protect her and would let her be in danger in front of a few bandits. But that wasn't the reason why she wanted to be good at it. She didn't want to be a burden on anyone. Kite was surprised. She was trying to help him. She had the insecurity that if, while saving her, he got hurt and couldn't become the king, only he could send her back home. He was still holding her hands. She had lost that battle against him, so she wanted him to let her go. He leaned toward her and turned her head up, looking into her eyes. He wondered why. She didn't want to lose him as he was her ally, and also Perat would be mad at her as well. He didn't say anything but kept looking at her. He wanted her not to go away. She seemed beautiful to him, and she wanted to defend herself as well, so that was the reason also. Kite didn't say much. He loosened her hands and headed inside the castle as Perat was waiting for them. He confronted her, saying he never took her as a burden, not after the night she fought with the monsters. He said the sword and the short hair suited her. Inside the castle, everyone was running or had some work to do. They were worried about a guest. Before they arrived, everyone had to dress up the castle. Perat, out of nowhere, greeted her from behind. Perat told her she was right about everyone's hurry. She noticed that Perat wasn't looking good. He was tired and seemed like he hadn't slept. Perat had been working non-stop for 2 days straight as he had only a few days and no time. Yunsu was worried that if he kept working like that, he might faint. Perat wanted a favor from Yunsu. It was Perat's only one and life's wish. He asked her. She hesitated and asked him what help he wanted from her. He wanted her to dance. She had no clue what he was talking about. Perat wanted her to dance with Kite as he had never been to a ball before. Kite was pissed. He didn't want to. He was thinking of managing everything on his own. Perat pointed out that he couldn't embarrass himself in front of those princesses. The last time he danced was when he was only 10 years old. Perat did have a tendency to underestimate Kite. Perat knew that Kite didn't like it, but for the plan, Kite must learn to dance with Yunsu. Yunsu informed Perat that she couldn't dance either. Perat leaned towards her and told her to use the book. She got scared of his face. He knew how she was able to run fast and get good with a sword. Since she was able to do that, he wanted her to master dancing as well. Yunsu hesitated, but Perat grabbed her hands and requested her to do it. He had seen Kite swinging swords many times, but he wanted her to teach him to dance in a way that all the princesses would want to dance with him. Perat started crying. He wanted to see him like that before he could rest in peace. Yunsu got a clue that they were getting away from the original goal there. He again insisted, and she had no answer but to say yes. Both were dancing there. As they were moving, Kite mistakenly stepped on her foot, and she yelled loudly in pain. Kite got scared of that. She was trying to teach him how to dance, but he was unable to perform as she was directing him. He knew it's bad to learn horse riding and dancing from someone they knew. Yoonsu thought he got mad at her. He didn't say anything. They were dancing for hours, and yet he was not able to get it. She thought he might be angry. She apologized to him that she wouldn't yell at him, so he agreed to give it one more try. He grabbed her wrist and hand and started dancing. She noticed that he was doing well this time. He was standing stiffly there. She started giggling, which he didn't understand. But she just laughed, saying he was doing great, because she had been grilling him. Parrot and Doris were not there. It was only them two dancing all night. There was no music, but she was able to hear his breathing and heartbeat. She felt like a pair of lovers there, even though that cannot happen. She was thinking about something and missed a step, almost falling, but Kite held her. She was saved, and Kite told her to focus on him. She looked up to him. She was the teacher there. She should be the one paying attention to him. Doris started giving her introduction. As a maid, she used to work for Kite in the castle, but ever since Yoonsu came there, she used to address Madam Witch, which is Yoonsu. At first, she got worried that the witch would be an old lady with a bad temper who would turn her into a frog. But Yoonsu was much kinder and prettier than she expected. A lot has changed since she came there. The old and dull castle has somewhat changed into a livelier place. But the most significant effect was on Kite. He has changed a lot. He used to be serious and stern, but now he is a lot brighter, according to Doris. He used to yell at Yoonsu for not informing Parrot or Kite. She had no permit to go anywhere without informing anyone. Yoonsu and Kite had a lot of arguments together. Yoonsu was amazing, as nobody had dared to stand against Kite like that. Doris never knew that Kite was capable of having so many feelings. She also discovered something interesting about Kite as well. As Doris was talking to another maid about eating something after work, she noticed something. She saw that Kite was standing on the ground, and Yoonsu was looking at him from a certain height. They wondered what Yoonsu was doing there. All of a sudden, Yoonsu jumped at Kite. Yoonsu thought she got the chance to attack Kite. Doris got scared, but Yoonsu was wrong about that. Kite got away simply, and Yoonsu fell down on the ground. Yoonsu called him a coward for not attacking her back. Kite wanted her to learn that big movements aren't effective, and he wanted her to learn it by experience only. The maids felt bad for Yoonsu. Yoonsu kept on trying. The maids wondered if it was good to let Yoonsu attack Kite like that, and then they went back to work. Doris thought the prince would get annoyed by her, but it turned out that he was kind of enjoying it. It was almost evening by then, and they were both still trading. She fell on the ground. She was pissed. She wrote to be the strongest, yet she was not able to defeat Kite. Kite had told her the fight was all about experience, but she was only thinking about skills. Kite looked at her and said the book must be working as she looked fine. She yelled at him to be quiet. He nudged her forehead and lay down beside her. They were both very tired. She felt shy sleeping beside him, so she woke up. But he took her hand, telling her that it wouldn't take long. He pushed her towards him, and she fell down beside him again. He wanted her to stop fussing around. She was all red in the face. The ground was cold, so he was just lending her his arm. They calmed down and were looking at the stars. It was a beautiful scene for her. He looked at her and said that during the royal banquet, she made soup spill on his head. She did that in hesitation, she said. He was mentioning the things she wrote to him in the book, like how his wooden sword broke in a fight with the first prince, and he got humiliated by scholars due to the wrong book being delivered to him. He wanted her to kill him in the book rather than go through all this much, as for a villain she hates this much. But Yoonsu always cared about her characters. Kite found that she was a good woman, kind and good-hearted. He wanted to thank her for keeping him alive. Yoonsu got a bit sad looking at him. Doris was seeing all of this and getting excited. Doris was unsure at first, but now she was sure after seeing the mood and the view that they might end up together. Parrot saw Doris sitting there looking at something. She flinched and left, saying she was doing nothing. She made an excuse that she had to wash some sheets. Parrot saw something. It was Yoonsu sitting there and Kite sleeping on the ground. He looked a bit pale-faced. Parrot was worried about something. Kite was breathing heavily. He wanted to rest a bit, but Yoonsu wanted to continue for one more time. Yoonsu didn't want to give up so easily, but Kite forced her to stop as she was overexerting herself. She screamed that she was fine, but she somehow dropped her sword. She was out of power at the moment, and that's what Kite was talking about. It had been 2 weeks since those monsters attacked the castle. She was happy that nothing had happened ever since the incident. But since then, Kite and Yoonsu had gotten attached to each other. They used to train for 4 to 5 hours a day and then practice dancing in the evening. She had gotten stronger, but due to too much strength, she felt exhausted every day and fell asleep as soon as she jumped into bed. Her palm was stinging. Kite asked her to show him. As he was looking at her palm, Yunsu was in deep thought. She knew that getting familiar with everyone, even with Kite, was bad because, in the back of her mind, she didn't want to go back home from there. She was happy and excited to be there with them, but she had to hide it each and every day. She was not able to forget, not even for a moment. Yunsu kept reminding herself that she was just a guest there who had to return home. Kite saw it and got to know that it was a scar. She wanted to go to Doris so Doris could apply something on the scar. Kite sat there on a big rock, telling her not to go anywhere and to sit beside him. He was carrying a lot of things because of her. He opened a box and wondered if she had forgotten what her real job was or if she was a fighter in her real world as well. She was silent, didn't say much, and didn't express anything much. He had no clue how it feels to be in another world, but he did understand that if she stayed longer, it would be tough for her to stay there. Her eyes filled with tears. She wasn't looking at him, so he asked her to look at him. She looked, and her eyes were filled with tears. He wanted to do anything he could to send her back home. He wanted her to believe in him, but her face was covered with more tears. She nodded her head down. At night, she wasn't able to sleep properly. Delegations were about to be there, as they said it would take only 2 weeks to arrive. They would enter the second prince's castle, and as she entered the underground and the door opened to the portal, she could go back to her world. All she had to do was write that Kite becomes the emperor in her laptop, and everything would be over forever. Definitely, Kite would marry a princess who suits him, and they would live forever. She felt lucky to meet her character. She did not want more than that. There was nothing that could make her happier, but still, she was crying. She thought maybe because of the late night, she got sentimental. She had to stay good and leave the castle sooner. Someone banged on her door. She thought it was already morning and maybe it was Doris. She thought it was an earthquake but remembered that this was just like how she went into this world. Kite opened the door, calling her to get up. He grabbed her hand and told her that Parrot had his horses ready to get her on. It was an earthquake. Horses were spooked, but only one horse was calm there. Kite wanted only one horse. He got her on the horse, but she had no clue what was going on. Kite got onto the horse, telling her the earthquake was just like the previous one. He wanted to go there right then. She got scared. Kite started riding the horse as fast as he could. She wanted to make the decision before she got there. She chuckled, knowing she had no choice. She had to go back. They got there, but it was nothing. No crack on the ground. Kite tried to tap on the ground with his legs, but nothing worked. He tried harder and harder, but nothing worked. He was pissed. Yunsu tried to calm him, but his anger was on another level. He seemed disappointed. If the hole had been there, he would have been one step closer to becoming emperor. That wasn't going to happen, and he looked furious because of it. She wondered if he actually wanted to send her back so desperately. Was she just a tool to him? Just a tool to become emperor? Yunsu suggested to Kite that the hole might not always appear in the same spot. It could appear in different spots as well. He got pissed, thinking that at midnight she was telling him to look around where there could be monsters and bandits. She didn't want him and herself to look around but advised other people from the castle as well. However, he didn't want to bother everyone just to look around for a hole. Everyone was busy preparing for the delegations, and he didn't want to bother them for a hole. Tears welled up in her eyes as he told her that. She was just making suggestions, there could be a chance of that. And it's not hard to ask for help from other people as well. He looked at her with furious eyes. She was about to cry. She started crying as he turned towards her. He got pissed. She wondered why he got mad, wiping her tears. He said he wasn't mad, but Yunsu thought he was mad for what she had done to him. Kite wondered what she was talking about. She thought he was mad at her because of what she had written about him in the book. She thought if the path had opened, he wouldn't have had to deal with all of this at once. Kite had no idea how she got to that assumption. He blamed her for causing trouble for everyone and looking gloomy. She had no idea what trouble he was talking about. Rather, she thought he wanted to blame her for everything. Everyone knew about her situation without her making so much fuss about it. He wanted her to stop making a miserable face all around. But Yunsu had different thoughts in her mind. She thought she was so desperate to go back to her world. As he was about to say something, monsters appeared. There were a bunch of monsters out of nowhere. They were directly looking at them. Kite had no idea how they got there. Yunsu had no sword with her. What could she do? Kite got angry, wondering how she could leave her sword behind. But it was Kite who made them leave in a hurry, and she was not a knight. They had to get out of there, so they started running towards the horse. A monster attacked the horse. The monster was able to kill the horse at the same time. They were both scared and had no idea what to do. Kite understood that they didn't have any choice. They had to deal with the monsters. Monsters attacked Kite, and he started fighting them. Yunsu stood there, looking at everything. The monsters were not attacking Yunsu, and she understood something was off about the ambush. The monsters were trying to divide them both. Kite kept fighting them. Yunsu tried to tell Kite about the ambush. She fell down on the ground. A monster came toward her. She saw the monster. The monster was just standing there in front of her. She was so terrified to see that monster near her. The monster leaned towards her but didn't hurt her. Yunsu noticed something. The monster was trying to say something to her. The monster barely said please to Yunsu somehow. Yunsu was terrified to hear it. She didn't understand how the monster was talking to her. Kite was surrounded by the monsters. He looked back and saw that Yunsu was surrounded by the monsters. He thought they were going to kill her, so he screamed at her to run, but the monsters attacked Kite. They made Kite bleed from his hands. Kite tried to defend and protect Yunsu, but there were too many in numbers. Yunsu saw him getting trapped by the monsters. The monsters trapped her inside them. She raised her hands towards him, but Kite was not able to save her. She tried to reach out, calling for Kite, but she was not able to as monsters blocked her way. She sat there wondering if she only had a sword or maybe her book with her, then she could have dealt with them easily. One of the monsters touched her back, and she got scared. She was again nudged by another monster. She was scared and annoyed. She didn't understand what they were doing. Neither had she ever created them. They all were making noises towards the sky. She wondered what kind of sound it was. Suddenly, she heard a splash from her back. It was Kite making a way through those monsters. She was happy to see Kite there. She wanted to go to Kite, but those monsters grabbed her clothes. Kite was angry and making his way to get to her. He saw that those monsters were stopping her from reaching him. He called them bastards and got more pissed. In anger, he let his guard down, and a monster from his back attacked him. Yunsu saw that the monster was about to attack Kite, so she ran towards Kite. Blood came out from the monster's attack. Kite was shocked. It was Yunsu who came in between the monster and Kite, and she got injured. He didn't understand why she did it. At that moment, Kite was holding Yunsu with one hand, and he had a pale face with no expression but full of anger to destroy each one of the monsters. How dare they hurt the witch, were his words. The monsters hesitated due to his anger and presence. Suddenly, those monsters started running away from him. He had no clue what just happened or why they ran away. Yunsu was feeling dizzy and almost fell. Kite held her before she fell. She wanted to know if he was all right, but Kite was concerned about her at that moment. Seeing him concerned about her, she said she was fine. Kite was worried about her. He wanted Yunsu to hold on a bit until he got her to the castle. She apologized, but he didn't want her to talk, as that would worsen her wounds. She didn't want to be a burden on him like this. In this situation, she should have stayed by his side during the ambush. She promised she wouldn't leave his side after that, so he wouldn't be in danger. He didn't say much, and she fell down. He said, who would read a novel where the author protects the villain, and called her an idiot. She laughed in pain there in his hands. They came back to the castle. Parrot was worried to see Yunsu on his shoulder. He wondered what had occurred there. He saw that Kite was wounded. He told Kite that the delegation would be there anytime. Kite tried to tell him. Parrot questioned Yunsu on how Kite got injured and how she could let him get injured. Kite screamed at Parrot. Parrot was stone cold, standing there. He told him that Madame Vassar needed to be treated right away or to bring her book. He didn't understand why she needed her book now or why she needed to be treated. Parrot saw her wounds on her back. He couldn't say another word. Kite carried her inside as everyone was rushing towards Kite to help. Kite didn't say much to Parrot and kept walking. In the castle, everyone was getting prepared for the delegation. Parrot was helping Kite get dressed. He asked him if that wound still hurt. That wound did hurt when Kite moved his hands. Parrot had given him a pain reliever, so it was working maybe. Parrot gave him such a tire that he was able to hide his wounds. But he still wanted Kite to be careful about his wounds. Yunsu and Doris were talking there, and Kite called Yunsu to ask her opinion on his clothes. Yunsu looked at him and got shy. She said it was looking good on him. He wondered if that's all she wanted to say to him. She told him that's enough for him. But deep down she did admit that he was handsome. Parrot was about to take his leave for the preparation. Parrot called Yunsu outside the room. He thought she must be disappointed as she was the one wearing something different from others. She looked at her clothes, but she was quite the opposite as she was excited and she felt like a real knight. But Parrot thought she might want to also wear a beautiful dress that day. But that was her choice anyway. She had to pretend to be a knight so she could be as close as possible to Kite without drawing attention to herself. Parrot didn't say much. He stood there and apologized to her. She was not angry at him. But he was feeling bad about that day, about what he said to her. She put herself in danger to save Kite back then. Yunsu had already forgotten about that and wasn't thinking much about it. Parrot also thought about Kite's dream, and Kite's dream was Parrot's dream. Even after he got to know that his world was just a creation of her words, his determination never changed. But when he met Yunsu, the creator of that world, he was a bit disappointed. He thought she was a god but who didn't care about her creations and was selfish, only thinking about going back home. She couldn't do anything about that if that's how she seemed. Parrot knelt down to her. Yunsu got embarrassed to see him like that. He confronted her that he would never suspect her ever again. He would do everything to make her wishes come true alongside Kite's. She didn't say much but agreed, and he kissed her hand. The guards gave the announcement to open the gates. The delegations came there in carriages. Many people were gathered there to see the delegations. It was colorful and beautiful as well. Doris and Yunsu were looking at it. Doris admired how much stronger the middle Lauren was, and she said Kite might get married too but got shut as Yunsu was standing beside her. Yunsu laughed, saying maybe he would get married. But she wanted to see what kind of person the princess was. Doris compared the princess with Yunsu, saying that she might not be as pretty as Yunsu. This sentence of Doris could also lead her to trouble. The princess had arrived there. Everyone bowed to her while Kite stood there to welcome her. She got out of the carriage. Her hair was blonde like the sun. Her eyes were blue and her face sparkling. Yunsu got stunned to see her beauty. She couldn't believe she wrote her that beautiful. The princess kept walking towards Kite. Yunsu peeked at her beauty again. The princess, with a red face, greeted Kite. Kite also welcomed her there. The princess had always dreamed of him as a flower knight, but he was looking too dashing at the moment. She was feeling shy, and Kite was just standing there, not understanding anything to say. Yunsu saw them, and they were looking like a perfect couple. Her beauty was sparkling. Parrot came there and introduced himself as an attendant of Kite. He was there to welcome everyone and to show the castle inside. The princess wondered if that was their castle. Kite said that was their castle. He thought she didn't like it, but she didn't have any problems. Rather, it was big and magnificent. She had been waiting to meet him for so long. He felt honored to meet her. A man was sitting at a table, rubbing his ink. He had long hair and was calm and silent. Someone knocked on his door. It seemed it was his servant. The servant came inside and informed him that the messenger had sent the letter, the messenger who was sent by his command. He told his grace that the princess had arrived at Kite's castle. The man stopped rubbing his ink. He was pleased to hear about it. The servant also told him that, judging by the carriage and horses, they might start the process soon. The letter also mentioned that it would take them 2 days to arrive at Prince Wine's castle with the princess. The prince knew that Kite would not partake in the flower night just to find a bride for himself. The prince asked his servant if Kite's mother knew about him being the flower knight. She did know, and she had hired someone herself. They were some common mercenaries from the streets. He thought she might have chosen something disrespectful in a hurry maybe. His servant asked if he wanted to eliminate them. The prince took his time and knew that she was just frustrated. Her mercenaries were only acting as her eyes and ears for now. He didn't want to kill her mercenaries. The servant understood everything and was willing to take care of everything so they didn't interfere with his plans. The prince wanted to observe everything. He wanted to save his plans as he didn't know their plans as well. There were too many people who would be watching during the earnest, so they should be careful too as everyone would hesitate to make a move. He stood there wondering why Kite didn't stay at the north quietly. If Kite tried to make a scene, it could cause his death even sooner. In the castle, Kite and the princess were sitting together for tea. The princess was feeling honored by his warm welcome, and he was happy that she liked it too. The garden was magnificent, with red roses and everything fitting Kite. She imagined them both chatting there in the garden when he mentioned it. She wanted to see those marvelous roses he promised to show her in letters. Kite had no idea, he just kept listening to her. Yunsu wondered when Kite wrote such kinds of letters. Parrot told her he never wrote them. Kite never wrote a single word, it was Parrot who wrote them. She asked him to talk to his chef to get the recipe as she had heard that the dessert was the best. Her hobby was cooking. Even though she was a princess, she wanted to cook for her family one day. She asked him if there was any food he personally disliked, but Kite didn't have any particular food that he didn't like. She was thrilled and wanted to repay him for the grand welcome he gave her that day. She felt so glad to hear that he was not a picky eater. She called herself a blessed bride out of excitement. Yunsu dropped her sword. She interfered in their conversation. She apologized for losing her sword and picked it up. Kite asked if she mentioned bride. The princess got shy. She apologized for that and said she didn't want to talk about it. Out of excitement, she mentioned it and got ahead of herself. Kite looked at her, she was so shy. She was done with supper and out of hesitation, she said she would show him the castle and corrected herself by asking if he wanted to show her the castle. She was so shy that she apologized and started running. She fell down as she was trying to run away. But she didn't stop and kept running. Parrot found her charming, but Kite thought she was troublesome. Parrot told him to follow her, but Kite didn't want to. Parrot didn't want Kite to leave her like that. Kite should not forget that he is a flower knight. Yunsu was standing at a distance, seeing them mumbling. She found that the princess was the perfect female lead. Her next book was supposed to be like that, but she didn't remember creating that character. She started to think about when she made the character. A bride. Is Kite going to marry? She thought. She didn't want that to happen as she was the female lead and Kite was the villain. For her, it was a total waste. Yunsu made Kite a villain and a fool who always thinks about fighting. And he swears a lot. If they end up together, then. She saw them both standing there. Kite was saying something to her and her tears were going away. She laughed there. Yunsu felt something different. Kite looked behind, but there was no one. Yunsu hid behind the pillar. Yunsu was in deep thought about how Kite and the princess looked like a perfect couple. She had no idea why she hated seeing them as a perfect couple. She and Kite were just allies of convenience. Kite wanted to be emperor, and Yunsu wanted to go back home. But why did it bother her anyway? She lay there thinking about all that had happened with her and Kite in the past. She felt shy and had no idea why she was thinking about all of it at that moment. Kite knocked on the door, asking if she was awake. He came inside. She wasn't sleeping but wondered what happened with his date. But it wasn't actually a date. He escorted her back, that was all. He sat on the chair and asked if she was all right. She didn't want him to worry about her, as she could act there. She would act like the best knight there. He looked at her, stood up, and he wasn't asking about her being the best knight there. Kite remembered how she said earlier that she would not leave his side. He walked towards her, wanting her to stay by his side, touched her face softly, and gave her a ribbon. He told her that she was a great soldier. Before leaving, he let her know that the ribbon was proof that she was his soldier and warned her not to lose it. She watched him leave the room. The next day, Kite and the princess were walking in the hallway. They were talking about how Kite learned sword fighting when they were young. He was the strongest swordsman, and even in Mittelloren, people talked about Kite's skills. Kite wasn't surprised to hear that, as the princess and Kite kept talking, and the princess was appreciating his skills and abilities. Yunsu, from behind, was watching them, seeing how she was hitting on Kite. A pillar of the castle was cracked. It almost fell, but Kite noticed it. He rushed and saved the princess from getting injured. They both fell on the ground. The princess was shaken. Kite understood that the column was not prepared properly. Kite rushed to check if she was all right. He apologized to her for this, as this happened quite a lot since the palace was a bit old. She was fine, nothing had happened, but dust got on her dress. She didn't want to continue and wanted to go to her room to rest. Kite didn't say much and let her go. Parrot apologized to Kite for what happened there. Kite wasn't angry, as this could happen to anyone. Yunsu noticed that the princess was shaken by the accident. She might not be all right. Kite knew she was from a wealthy family, and she might not be used to this. The princess came back to her room. She seemed quite upset. Her servant asked her if everything was fine. She said she was fine. Her maids rushed to check if she was fine. One of the maids started acknowledging Kite, saying that he was nicer than the rumors. He was able to save her, and was much more reliable. The princess got angry and slapped the maid right away. The maid fell to the ground. The princess was so much angrier. She asked her maid what she was excited about. The princess grabbed her clothes as the maid was asking for forgiveness. She got slapped again by the princess. The princess kept on slapping her maid, saying she was stuck there in a rundown shithole that was covered in dust and had to flatter a one-eyed guy. She did not stop but kept slapping her maid until the maid lay inconspicuously on the ground, and the princess was all covered in sweat. She was breathing heavily. Her servant saw her and told her to hold back. He reminded her of her revenge against the Froch lady, and that would only happen if the Fairyson helped through Kite. She did want to take revenge against that Froch lady, talking about marrying a powerful country, and now, a worthless woman was making her go through all of this. She didn't understand what was with Kite's attitude. He didn't even flinch after seeing her beauty. She wanted him to show her some kind of expression at least. He had a lot of attitude for a prince, she said. Only if you were not the Prince of Fairyson, he couldn't have imagined beauty like hers. She called him worthless and his castle dirty and old. But they didn't have any choice. Fairyson was their only option. She wanted Kite to be at her feet, groveling to her. She had plans to make him her puppet and make him emperor. Her country had enough power to make Kite emperor, even if she had to start a war. She wanted to kneel everyone down. The carriage was running with 3 horses guarding it. Inside the carriage, both Kite and the princess sat. The princess wanted to talk to Kite, but he was reading the scrolls and not paying attention to her. She suddenly started talking about the outer view, mentioning how she found it beautiful. Kite was glad she liked the outer view but was still not interested in her. She became angry, not understanding how someone could ignore her. She called him a poor prince with an old castle in the middle of nowhere. She tried to calm herself, thinking it would be easier to control a man who had nothing. She waited for her chance to make a move. As the carriage wheel was jolted by a stone, she pretended to fall on Kite, thinking this might be her chance. But Kite stopped her with the scroll he was holding in his hands, preventing her from falling on him. He told her not to stand in a moving carriage and to be more careful. Out of anger, she was shaking, wondering what he thought of himself. She almost had tears in her eyes. Yunsu wondered who had motion sickness. Parrot explained that the princess was feeling nauseous and wanted to rest a bit. She did look demure, but she didn't seem that unwell. Kite told them she was fine and had also tried to fall on him. He wanted to get out of that carriage. Both Parrot and Yunsu were shocked. Yunsu had no clue the princess could do this, but Parrot was feeling good and wanted to know what else had happened. Yunsu got angry at Parrot for asking him that. The princess was so pissed off about what had happened earlier. Her servant tried to calm her down, fearing someone might hear them, but instead, she got angry and slapped him. She blamed her servant for everything that had happened. She hated that a poor prince could ignore her. Since so much had happened, she wanted to take that opportunity to get her hands on him no matter what. She wanted to seduce him and then have the entire Fairyson in her hands. While she was saying this, Doris saw her. She heard everything the princess said and was shocked. Let's see what will Princess do to make Kite fall in love. Or will Maid Dora ruin her plan by telling it to Prince Kite? Let's see that in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.